Hello, hello, good evening. Welcome to Dr. Tumor Talk Show on Tuesdays. And thank you for coming. If you're here listening, please tell me where you're listening from. If you're watching this later, please hashtag retake. Please put in hashtag replay. Um, and thank you for joining in. For those of you who are listening for the first time, I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer. I'm a family medicine and community health physician and founder of Total Weight Care Institute. I'm also the founder of Your Light Wellness and Weight Care, a now a virtual national physician-run, physician staff weight care, wellness and weight care group that will be taking patients soon. So I will definitely announce everything more clearly and more easily later. But hello, Gerard. Now you're in for a treat. Now, in the end, I do answer lots of questions. So if you have some, you can just save them to the end. And they don't have to be related to what I'm talking about. They can be really anything that's health, wellness, and weight care related, which many of you ask, and I appreciate them, and I love the questions that you ask. So, feel free to ask them later. But you're in for a treat today because this is my signature talk. This is one of the talks I give every single year around this time. I'll probably do this more than once, but since you all have been coming here, listening, and I appreciate you, I'm going to give this to you as a treat. So what this is my holiday eating. We're heading into Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I get a lot of questions. People get nervous because they've been working hard all year, and they feel like they're going to be derailed by the end of the holidays, and it's not really necessary. And you don't have to not enjoy the holidays just because you're worried about your weight health or you're worried about your general health. Now, of course, if you are a diabetic like I am, you'd still have to watch your carbohydrates and your sugar. And if you have any issues like blood pressure, congestive heart failure, you have to watch your salt intake um, and try to mitigate that. But otherwise, there's really ways to enjoy the holidays and still eat all the ooey gooey stuff because, I love to eat. I feel like food is a self-care mechanism and we should enjoy it. And especially since, because, a lot of people make their food from love. They share their favorite recipes. They share things that they only make this time of year. And, when I talk about biopsychosocial, the biology is, of course, we have to watch some things just because, especially for those of us who are unable to eat whatever we want, but you still can do that in moderation. And then you have the psychosocial part, the psychology of eating around the holidays. People always talk about, emotional eating. Well, not all emotional eating is from feeling sad. A lot of it's just from feeling celebratory. And so, Thanksgiving is a day of emotional eating. And so it's Christmas, and so are the parties in between. But the social part is important because there are people who really they spend a lot of time and effort and they show their love through food. And so when, it's important to reciprocate that by eating it if you want to. Um, I'm just going to stop for 1 second because I think my ringer is on and I want to make sure that it's not. Nope, it isn't. Okay. So, when people cook for you and they make your favorite things and they make their favorite things to show love to you, it's important to get to do those, to have a little bit. And so I'm going to go through some steps, just 9 steps of things that I do every single year. I've lost over 100 pounds. I've managed to keep that weight off through many holiday seasons, and I do eat whatever I want. And so I'm going to show you how to do it. This is the trick. So actually, you're getting a slide presentation today because this is something I do often. So I have slides. So yay, you get slides today. I don't do this often, but I'm doing it now. So this is the ultimate guide to holiday eating. So you can eat without gain, without guilt. And so Um, going to click here. I hope this works. Let me see if it works. All right. So, rule number one: the holiday season is a time for celebration, relax, and have fun. That is the number one rule. If you push too much of your process onto the holidays, it takes away from the whole point of the holidays, and that is to celebrate. So enjoy yourself. Sometimes not gaining weight during the holidays is exactly the same as losing it other times of the year. You don't have to always be in weight loss mode. Sometimes it's just in maintenance so that, there's this balance that you can have where you can enjoy yourself and also maintain your progress. And that's important because again, you don't 10, 15 years from now, you're going to remember the memories of the holidays. You're not going to remember whether you gained or lost or whatever your weight. You're not going to remember the pounds on a scale, but you will remember the stories. You'll remember the feelings. You'll remember, how you felt and the celebration around that time. So, how do you prepare? So, a lot of this depends on whether you're doing the cooking, someone else is doing the cooking, whether it's a party, whether it's something else. But this is something you can actually do during any celebration, any time of the year. This can be birthday parties, anniversaries, weddings that you go to. Whatever it is, there's ways of preparing when you go into a celebration where food is the center of that celebration, which is a lot. I mean, we celebrate around food quite often. And so, like I said before, it's psychosocial. You don't want to not eat people's food when it is presented to you out of love. And you don't want to torture yourself by not eating something that you want. There's a way that you can have it and kind of get the best of both worlds. So how do you prepare? So if you're cooking, plan a menu that avoids your triggers and that provides you with satisfying options. I personally would never have Oreos in my house. If I have Oreos in my house, I will eat them. So I know Oreos are my trigger. So I do not do anything with Oreos around. But for someone else, it could be some types of pies, or it could be chocolate cake, or it could be, something else. But, so if you know that you have certain triggers that you just can't stop eating no matter what, then what you need to do then is just not have that as part of your menu. The other is to provide yourself with satisfying options that won't derail you. So if you know you're hypersensitive to carbohydrates, then make sure you have things around that either offset the carbohydrates or add, some healthy fat and protein around the carbohydrate that you want to have. Now, if you're a guest at someone's house or if you're a guest at the party, bring something that allows you to eat and enjoy yourself without overindulging. And so ask, what the menu is, if it's at someone's home, if it's a dinner, if it's a, holiday party where there's just a lot of appetizers. This isn't really as important because you can just bring your own. Bring things that you know you can have that won't derail you, usually that are protein heavy, like charcuterie boards or no carb snacks of some kind, like something that's nut based, like almonds or almond butter based. Those are things that you can take with you that you know that you can munch on and because you know what it is when you're sitting around and there's lots of people eating and there's lots of people snacking and you're not eating anything, you become the center of attention. And that's the worst thing you want to be when you're trying to stay healthy. You're in a process. The last thing you want are people paying attention to you and your eating. It's none of their business. So there's tricks around kind of pulling the attention away from yourself. And that's from taking things with you that you can eat that give you um, essentially keep your mouth occupied and just help you stay satisfied and enjoy your time. Uh, and so that's always a good idea. Just take something with you wherever you go. Um, but the hours before, so this is how you prepare. So I always say if you fail to plan, plan to fail. So before going anywhere where you know you're going to be around lots of food, think about how you're going to handle it. Visualize yourself eating slowly. Eating slowly will help you not overeat because it takes about 20 minutes for your brain to get the message. When your stomach is full, there's a certain amount of hormonal and molecular biological and chemical reactions that send messages to your brain to say, oh, you've eaten, you're full, you don't need to eat anymore. Well, it takes a little bit of time, and the slower you eat, the more likely you are to get that message before you finish what you're eating. The other is going to be review the protocol plan. This is the plan you're about to get. So listen closely. If you got a pen, you got a piece of paper, you might want to write this down. This is also going to be, of course, on YouTube. This is for you to watch later if you need to, and you can share it with others too, because this is a good thing to have, like I said, all year round. The other is eat. Before you go anywhere where there's lots of food and you might have triggers, you might have some pitfalls, make sure you don't go into that situation hungry. If it's an evening, make sure you've eaten throughout the day. Don't wait and say, I'm going to save my calories till the end of the day. Usually, what ends up happening is that you overindulge and you end up eating way more calories throughout the day, way more calories in that one bit of time than you would if you had just eaten all day long. The other is that when you've eaten all day long and you're not waiting till you're in the situation when you're hungry, one, you have more control. Two, you have control over what you've eaten throughout the day. And so you can have, healthier meals or more protein laden meals before you go into a situation where you're going to want dessert. Because I can tell you now, if I'm in a place where there's pies, I'm going to have some. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. Yes, you can have dessert. Like I said, the ooey gooey stuff. So before I continue, I do want to say hello to Sandra, hello to Marie and Elaine. Thank you for coming. And for those of you who are watching, sometimes your names don't show up, so I can't say hello to you, but thank you. I can see your numbers and I know you're here, but I just, can't say hello to you by name. So at the time that you're in the situation where you're at the party, where you're in the event, enjoy everything. Yeah, that's what I said that. Enjoy everything. So what that means is that don't avoid things just because you think I can't have them. Now, there's an order, and I'm going to show you how in which to do things. But if you know you want to have something, it's not that you can't. Sometimes it's just the order in which you eat it. And I'm going to teach you that in just a moment. But the other is you can also repeat the protocol steps, which I'm about to show you. But the other is to keep no carb snacks handy. Nuts, charcuterie board, just in case the meal's delayed. So if you start getting hungry, you've got something to snack on. I tend to keep almond bars in my bag. I know sometimes. Or I also drink a lot of water. Water is your friend in this situation. You can fill up with liquids because often, just in general, often when we're thirsty, our brain interprets it as hunger. And so when you walk into a situation, always make sure you're very well hydrated. So step one is appetite control. Like I said, always want to make sure that you've eaten throughout the day. You do not walk into a situation where there are lots of different types of foods that, could cause you some issues. And you don't want to walk into that situation hungry. So you want to eat throughout the day, try to eat as healthily as possible throughout the day so you can indulge a little bit at the end of the day. But the other thing that you can do is control your appetite with a protein drink. Now, there are many types of protein drinks out there. There's Fairlife, there's Ensure, that you can make your own. But about 30 to 60 minutes before you go, drink some protein. If you don't want to eat a meal that's going to fill you up before you go, obviously, because you want to enjoy some things, drink a 30-gram protein drink that will act as an appetite suppressant. Protein is a natural appetite suppressant. And so just by drinking something beforehand with protein in it, excuse me, then you can help suppress that. Now, many of us are on GLP-1s for whatever reason, diabetes, we're on a weight health journey, Where it has some metabolic issue that we're trying to control. So if you're on a GLP-1, you could probably skip this step, mainly because often what happens is that your appetite's already suppressed and you don't want to suppress it further and then not enjoy the meal that's coming. The other that this is a time when sometimes it's okay to skip your dose. Now, but this is what I say. If you find that you're skipping your dose to get yourself to the point where you'll be hungry enough to eat, what that also means is you may be on too high of a dose. Your appetite shouldn't be so suppressed that you can't enjoy food. Food is a self-care mechanism. Food is something that also gives, is a pleasure for us, and it's a life joy. And so if you're on a medication that completely robs you of that joy, maybe you're on too much, because you should still be able to have food, enjoy food, and you know, and because like I said, you go through life. Who wants to go through life not wanting to eat? I know I don't. But anyway, and this is from someone who's lost 100 pounds and kept it off. So I like my food and I want to be able to eat it. So yeah. So don't suppress your appetite to the point where you can't enjoy what's coming. The other step is before eating, before putting anything in your mouth, make sure you're hydrated. So you want to drink some water. Drinking water will do a couple of things. It will, one, stop you from overeating. It will stop you from eating too quickly. It will also give the message to your brain earlier on in the process that you have a full stomach. Now, like I said, it takes about 20 minutes for that message to get from a stretch of your stomach to your brain to say, yes, you've eaten and not to eat too much. So adding water earlier on in the process can help with that. But the other thing that water does is that it actually helps with digestion. And so, it doesn't have to be a lot of water, 4 to 8 ounces, but just enough so that it can help with your process and not have you start eating when your stomach's empty and you're hungry. Step 3 is start with a no carb course. Now, this is the absolute trick. When you have a table full of food and you have a whole bunch of things to choose from, start with something, the protein and vegetables, or anything that's no carb, nuts, or and that means like meats, cheeses, nuts. Um, it could be vegetables. So if you're at Thanksgiving dinner, for example, and there's turkey, there's string beans, there's other things, take just a small plate. Doesn't have to be a lot, but just make sure that the first plate that you have is a little bit of protein and vegetables, because that does a couple of things. One, it stops you from overindulging when you get to the other stuff. But two, it gets your brain focusing on the protein and the vegetables and not the carbohydrates that's coming later. And the reason that's so important is because our body uses carbohydrates as a signaling to make fat. And so if you slip it in and hide it, kind of sandwiched between protein, it's less likely to cause you as much of an issue. It's those carbohydrate spikes, that blood sugar spike that really triggers all the appetite, the cravings, the increase in appetite, the brain missignaling. And so what you want to do is eat something, healthy fats, protein, vegetables, before you get to the carbohydrates, so that that spike doesn't happen, and then you're less likely to overeat. Your brain is less likely to send off those mixed signals or those miss signals. And so that's your first plate. But you don't want to get full off of that plate. You just want to get a little bit in your system so that it prevents the sugar spike when you get to the good stuff. And that's when we get to the goodie course. This is what I call it anyway. So this is when you get all the rest, all the things that you like. If you want to have, something that's, a little ooey or gooey, or you want, if it's a meal part. So I'm kind of focusing on meals, especially around Thanksgiving, because that's what's coming up. So what you want to do after you've had your plate of vegetables and protein and no carbs, the next plate should be half protein, half vegetables. Just whatever plate, whatever size plate you have, Just make sure that half of that plate is more meat, more vegetables. And then the other half of the plate is all the other stuff. Little bit, 1 table, fill up the rest of the plate with a little bit of mashed potato, a little bit of dressing, or a little bit of the cranberry sauce, or a little bit of, some type of casserole if it's, macaroni and cheese, for example. Um, that's how you kind of get everything. You get that nice flavor profile, which we're all looking for that combination of foods in our mouth. And then eat slowly and deliberately and really enjoy it. Let your brain take in all of it. Let your brain see it, let your nose smell it, let your tongue taste it, and just enjoy it slowly so that there's no part of what you're eating that you don't enjoy. Make sure you enjoy every single part of it, because that what that does is it gives your brain the message that yes, you are eating. And that eating then changes what your brain tells your body to do. It will tell your body to digest it, yes. It will tell your body to absorb it, yes. It will tell your body more than likely to send it to your muscles for fuel rather than to your fat cells. That is why the signaling is so important and why you want to avoid that blood sugar spike. Because as soon as your blood sugar spikes, that means your insulin level spikes. And when your insulin level spikes, whatever you eat, your body's going to try and push to make fat out of it. So that's why the small plate in the beginning, the half the plate of vegetables and protein, and then a little bit of all the other stuff that you like to eat. And then really, truly enjoy it. Because otherwise, what's the point? So the other is step is no liquid sugar. If you have like, I mean, sometimes people are just like, listen, my Aunt Betsy makes the best, you know, um, sweet tea, and I'm not gonna not have some, or my cousin so and so makes the best punch, and I'm just not gonna have some. So what you do is you treat that as either as a dessert or you treat it as part of the meal and you have it in moderation. But always make sure that it is after making sure you've had protein and vegetables and before, because liquid sugar spikes your blood sugar faster and more efficiently than anything else. And so if you can avoid drinking your sugar, that is the best way to go. So sugar-free drinks, um, sugar-free soft drinks, diet sodas, or water with lemon, whatever. If you have to have something to drink and you don't want it to be flavorless, if it can be sugar-free, that's better. But if you're going to have something, just make sure it's very small amounts. Try to keep it under 4 ounces. That's half a cup. And you want to make sure that you've already had your protein and vegetables. You've already started your brain and your digestion onto something that's not carbohydrate laden, not sugar laden first. And then that also applies to mixed drinks. Now, a lot of people like, alcohol's bad. If you don't drink, that's fine. However, drinking alcohol isn't the issue. It's usually the drinking the alcohol that lowers your inhibition and it makes you less careful, that you have to be careful about. And the best way of doing this is if you're going to have some type of alcoholic drink, make sure the base of that drink is a non-sugar. So diet soda, some types of Crystal Light, which is a good base for things that are like lemonade, if they're lemonade based or something else. So, and if you, another hack, this is a good hack. If you're making a punch, using sugar-free Jello as the base for that punch really makes it sweet and gives it a nice flavor, because you have all different types of flavor of Jello, so you can really make it any flavor you want, and then mix your other stuff in it. And so that's the way to have, if you want to have mixed drinks with your meal or after or before. Now, if you're having it before your meal, you want to make sure it's sugar free. If you're having it after or during, then you want to keep it in moderation if there's sugar in it, but preferably no sugar at all if you can avoid it. The other is if you're drinking wine. Now, wine really is fruit juice. It's sugar, essentially, and your body treats it like sugar. So if you can drink no carb or low carb wines, those are the best way to go. You want to make sure that those wines, again, are after you've already had your nice protein laden small plate. Because if you drink wine before you've eaten, it's going to derail. I mean, it's going to take everything else you've eaten and turn it to fat because your blood sugar is going to spike and it's going to tell your brain, okay, your insulin levels are high, and your body is just going to try to make fat out of what you've eaten. So if you can hold off drinking wine until after, treat it like dessert instead of treating it like a drink. That is the best way to go. Now, personally, I have not tried low carb wines. I have no idea how they taste. I've been told that they taste pretty good, but don't take my word for it because I really don't know. So if any of you have ever had low carb or no carb wine, you just post in the chat, whether it's actually any good. But I know that it's out there. Okay. And then you have step 8. Yes, dessert. And you read that right. There is no point of going through the holidays and never having any dessert. If you can get through the holidays with no dessert and you're fine with it, and you're just like, I can do without the sweet potato pie. I can do without the pumpkin pie. I can do without apple. I can do without the cake or without the sweet or the little, petit fours or anything else. More power to you. I'm not one of those people. I mean, I eat in a way so that I can have my dessert. And that's really how I came up with this for myself. And I tell other people about it because it works. It has worked, and it worked for me and many of my patients and many of my clients. And that's why I share it, because I know it works. It has worked. And just like I said, sometimes not gaining weight through the holidays is the same as losing weight other times of the year. The main thing is that you don't want to exacerbate any medical conditions that you have in the process. So when it comes to dessert, the less carbs you eat through your meal, the more indulgent you can be with your desserts. But that doesn't mean you have to not eat anything with your meal. It just means that you need to have some balance. So the way it can be done is, if you know that half your plate is going to be vegetables and protein, and the rest is going to be something else, you can include dessert in that. You don't have to fill up your whole other half of the plate. You can just keep in mind, I'm going to have a lot of dessert after this, so I'm going to actually limit the amount of carbohydrates that I put on my plate. So instead of 2 spoonfuls of macaroni and cheese, I'm going to have 1. Instead of 2 spoonfuls of dressing, I'll have only 1, because I'm going to exchange that extra for the dessert that I want to have later. This is usually often when people pour most of their love into something. And so it's often very difficult for them when someone won't eat it. This is a social thing. This is where you sort of weigh the benefit from and I wouldn't say risk, but the downfall. So I am a diabetic. Everyone knows I am a diabetic. So if there's certain things that I don't eat that are sweet, I don't offend anyone because they know. This is something I can't tolerate. After all, and usually you can tell. Some people can tell when their blood sugar is getting a little high, and so they might limit what they eat afterwards. But the trick is, you try to take a little bit of everything that you want. And so I always say, kind of give it the finger, and not in a bad way, but little. So what you do is you take your finger, and every little thing should be a sliver about the width of your finger. So that means if there's 4 different types of cake and you want to have every single type, instead of eating one piece of one, or just take a little bit of each one, but it shouldn't be any more than a sliver. You'd be surprised how little you can get away with and be satisfied. Most of us have never tried. We just go for what we're used to, a whole piece of pie, a whole piece of cake. But you'd be surprised by how little it takes to satisfy a sweet tooth, how little it takes to satisfy your brain for that drug of sugar that it wants, how little it takes after a full meal to feel satisfied with a bit of dessert. The other trick is if you can add extra fat and protein to whatever it is that you're eating, whatever dessert you're eating, the better. It's like sugar free ice cream, high fat, sugar free ice cream. You want to stay away from the fat free stuff. You need the fat to keep the sugar from causing that sugar spike. So, heavy whipping cream. Um, you can either use a sweetener in it, you can have it plain. Sometimes it will offset the sweetness of some of the dessert. Like I said, sugar free ice cream. Um, there's lots of different ways of adding fat and protein to a dessert to make it a little bit better on your system. So, that's a trick that many of us have. And, again, slowly, eat it slowly. Enjoy every bite. Let your tongue taste the flavors. Let your nose smell the aroma. Let your brain get the message that you've eaten and that you've enjoyed it. And the other thing that happens when you really truly enjoy your food, your hormones that your body produces are more likely to take that food and turn it to fuel. If you're eating food and the whole time you're thinking to yourself, I shouldn't be eating this, I really should put this down, what that does is that it causes your stress hormones to go up, your cortisol. If you're eating food in anger, you're eating food in guilt, you're eating food in frustration with yourself or disgust with yourself, what that does is it changes the hormones your body gives off. And the hormone that your body gives off then takes what you're eating and shifts it to fat. If you sit and enjoy it and really enjoy it and treat your food like it's something that is a self-care mechanism, then different hormones are given off and you're less likely to make fat out of it. And that's a true fact. How you eat your food is what your body does when you do eat it. And then the last step is think about what you're going to do for the days after. Now, if you're not at if the meal's at your house, you're going to have a lot of leftovers. And the way to treat your leftovers is exactly in the same way that you treat your meals. You try to make sure that it's protein heavy more than carbohydrate heavy. And you do it in the exact same steps. You start with a little bit of protein, a little bit of vegetables first. Get your body primed, focusing on that before you eat anything else that's going to make your blood sugar spike. And that's what you do with your next step. Often what happens though, you can't get through the second plate because you're already satisfied from the first. And so, so the next day, that's what, eating leftovers is fine, but you eat it in the same order, in the same way that you did before. The other is still have dessert, but try to limit it to once a day. It's really hard sometimes when you have lots of cakes and pies and stuff around. I'll just have a little bit with my coffee in the morning. Oh, I'll just have a little bit after lunch. Oh, I'll just have a little bit after dinner. It's those little bits in different times that your brain kind of takes on that sugar and it kind of drives an addiction. So the key is to try and make sure that if you have dessert, it is after a meal that had no carbohydrates in it, if you can. Just try to limit. And then the other is, in order to stay sort of on track, have no carb meals throughout the day. Like once a day, just have a big salad with lots of, eggs, and take some of the turkey and cut it up on it. Or have your vegetables and your turkey and gravy and not have anything else. And then later indulge in all the rest. And that's essentially how you get through the holidays, eating what you want without offending anybody, without losing your progress, and then simply enjoying what it is that the holidays are for: food and family and love and laughter. And you don't have to give all that up just because you're on a health journey or you're on a weight loss journey. Or and this, like I said, this is what I've done throughout the years to maintain my weight loss, and this is what I've taught others to do the same. So I just want to say thank you for coming. I'm going to say good evening to everyone who's here: Denise, Lisa, Victoria, Elaine, Chris, good to see you. And oh, by the way, Chris, I have somebody for you. I really do. So please just contact me because I always forget. I'm so forgetful. Just like I mentioned, so I do. And the reason I have someone, and I'm just going to make an announcement. I have formed a national telehealth weight care, wellness and weight care group of physicians so that we can help people in any state get the help they need to stay healthy, to get healthy, for either weight health, hormonal health, wellness, with hair loss, whatever. There's just doctors waiting to help people for what they need in a way that's convenient and accessible and also affordable, because that's really the most important thing. We because of legislation, we lost our ability to help a lot of patients all at once. And so what I've done is I've just gathered a group of doctors from every state so that we could get back to where we were. So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. Uh, so let me ask you. So Shinawe, am I saying your name correctly? Love your advice. Very real and easy to apply. And so this is actually, because of this, it's going to be it's recorded and it's going to be on YouTube. So if you go to the lives on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@Dr. all of this is there, and it will be there and it's not going anywhere. So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to let y'all go early, a little quicker than usual. Although I guess I talked a little longer than usual this time. But if you have questions, if not, then let me see if I see any. You can always ask me questions in my Facebook group, on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook page. All of them are at Dr. Toomer, DrToomer. So if you want to find me later, you can do that. If you want to email me, I'm courage@drtoomer.com or help@drtoomer.com. So you can find me in those places as well. So the question is, why does your brain body confuse us that we are hungry when we're really thirsty? Because what happens as we get thirsty, our brain cells shrink. One. Two, the other is just one of those cross wiring things that our brain does. Who knows why? But when we get hungry, what happens is our brain starts wanting us to eat things that have more water in them. It's not actually going after the food, it's going after the water in the food. And so sometimes just drinking water stops that from happening. Someone says, so is eating a dessert and drinking milk okay? Now, I always say, if you're going to drink milk, make sure it's full fat. Full fat milk actually I just said milk. Full fat milk, that was my Michigan accent just came out full force. So full fat milk it will help reduce the spike in sugar, as long as you're not sensitive to milk sugar. Now, some of us are lactose intolerant, and our body responds to lactose just like it does to table sugar and will drive our blood sugar up. So yes, you can have milk and you can have dessert, but you want to make sure that you've loaded up on fat and protein beforehand, just to make sure. But there's a trick. You'll know if it's caused your issue. So how do you know if your blood sugar has gone up? One, you get very, very sleepy. Everyone talks about the tryptophan in turkey as the reason we get sleepy. It's not always, it's blood sugar. And it's, of course, some of it's oxygen shift because your body's, trying to digest food, so it all goes to your stomach. But if you get really, really sleepy after eating, if you get really irritable after eating, like you just, people like you go into a bad mood, your blood sugar's high. And then if you have a glucometer around, just check your blood sugar and see. But you can always you can test it and see how your body responds. But the best way to eat dessert is always to have something before it to make sure that it slows down the spike in sugar from the dessert. Sherry asks, drinking extra water will definitely be one of my tools and eating extra veggies and protein. It's a wonderful tool. Like I said, it's a natural appetite suppression. And the biggest issue isn't what we eat, it's how much of it we eat. You can eat as much, you can eat things in moderation, but if you don't have control over that moderation, basically for me, I like to eat, I like food. I just use any tool at my disposal. And one of those is water, or two of those water, and then the other is just the protein beforehand. Because your stomach can only hold so much. Sherry said, imagine that adding extra walking after all meals is good too. Absolutely. In fact, walking after a meal is one of the best ways to help you digest that food. So sometimes that could be another tradition. You have a meal and you all go for a family walk. That's not a bad idea. Should we drink the milk first? No, milk actually our body can't tell the difference between milk and soda. The only difference is that milk has fat in it. But sometimes our body responds to milk just like it's a sugary drink. So I wouldn't use it. I would treat milk more like wine or than anything else. Um, Fatty milk, to be honest, um, you know, half and half and cream is better than milk when it comes to desserts. So, if you want to drink something, I would drink water and then eat. I just, milk is not it's healthier. I mean, it does have a lot of nutrients in it, but it is not a counter to sugar because it has sugar in it in and of itself. Lactose is sugar, and our body reacts to that. But drinking it in moderation, like some things you just don't, you want to have milk with it. Certain cookies taste better with milk. So full fat milk in moderation with that dessert is still, maybe a flavor profile you're chasing. So one of the things that I always say, don't avoid the things you want. And the reason is you'll end up eating a whole lot more eating around it than just eating it. Okay. Any other questions? Any more? Okay. Well, thank you for coming. I will see you here now next Tuesday. No, I'll be here. Now next Tuesday is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I didn't want to wait till then. For those of you who are in the United States, it's our Thanksgiving not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. And so I didn't want to wait until the Tuesday right before. So this is a time for you to just start thinking about making plans, thinking about how you're going to do it. People are putting together menus. So this is the time to start thinking about what you're going to do during the holidays. But the main thing, number one rule is enjoy. Enjoy yourself and enjoy it and enjoy your family and your friends. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Lots of Christmas parties, lots of other things happening. So, and so which also brings me to my next point. There may be a few Tuesdays that I think there's one Tuesday in December I won't be here, mainly because it is the time of it's our hospital Christmas party. So I think it falls on a Tuesday this year, so I'll be there. Okay. Well, good night. Thank you for coming. And like I said, share this with your friends and family if you found it helpful. Follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like. And if any of you think you may need help or want to get a strategy and plan in place, I do have standalone strategy and plans for anybody who just wants to figure out what their best next steps should be. So, all right. Good night, everyone. And thank you for coming.